if everything you know about South Korea comes from K-dramas, K-pop, and travel vlogs.
이 노래는 it's about you, baby.
This video might hurt. It might hurt because it shows a reality that almost no one talks about. A side that, although hidden, still exists right in the heart of one of the country's wealthiest neighborhoods. But if you can handle the raw truth, stick with me. Today, I want to show you a side of Korea that few people talk about, the part that hides behind all the perfection we see on screens and in store windows. Because beyond the glamorous K-dramas, the chart-topping K-pop hits, and the beauty trends taking over the world, there's also a Korea that many would rather ignore. In one of my previous videos, I talked about Japan's hidden slums, and if you haven't seen that one yet, make sure to check it out after this. As I mentioned there, Japanese slums aren't exactly like the ones we're used to in other parts of the world. After all, it's Japan, and even in the midst of poverty, there's still a certain level of structure and order. But when we look at South Korea, the story takes a very different turn. Today, I'm going to take you to a side of this country where reality hits harder. A forgotten place where people struggle to survive in a system that worships status and appearances. And I promise you, what you'll see here might just change everything you thought you knew about South Korea. So stay with me until the end. I'm about to take you to a side of Korea few are willing to show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In Seoul, just a few steps away from the luxurious skyscrapers of Gangnam, lies Gyeonggi Village, a makeshift community of shacks that has endured for decades. This village was born in the 1980s, when South Korea was preparing to host the 1988 Olympic Games. In a rush to present a modern image to the world, many poor neighborhoods were demolished. Left with nowhere to go, displaced residents built their homes using simple materials on unregulated land. Today, Gyeonggi stands as a powerful symbol of the deep social inequalities that still exist in South Korea. On one side of the road, you'll find luxury apartments and high-end designer stores. And on the other, families living in precarious conditions, facing challenges like frequent fires and a lack of proper infrastructure. In recent years, there have been several attempts to redevelop the area. In 2024, the Seoul government approved a plan to transform Gyeonggi into a modern residential complex, with over 3,500 housing units. But the process has been anything but smooth, marked by disputes between government officials, landowners, and residents, many of whom fear losing their homes without fair relocation or compensation. The story of Gyeonggi reminds us that even in countries known for their progress and innovation, there are still communities fighting for dignity and recognition. It's crucial that we look beyond the glossy surface and try to understand the deeper social issues that shape these nations. What makes Gyeonggi's story even more heartbreaking is the fact that, while the city of Seoul continued to grow and modernize, the people living around it were gradually forgotten. It's estimated that between 2,500 and 4,000 people live in Gyeonggi, most of them elderly, struggling daily with food insecurity, lack of medical care, and the constant fear of fire. Tragedies like these have struck the village multiple times. In 2014, 2017, and most recently in January 2023, when more than 60 homes were destroyed. Gyeonggi faces a chronic and terrifying problem: fires. With homes built from flammable materials like wood, plastic, and metal, even the smallest spark can lead to disaster. In January 2023 alone, a fire ripped through the community, destroying about 60 homes and forcing 500 residents to evacuate. These events are alarming, but sadly, they're nothing new for those who live there. Privacy is another luxury residents simply don't have. Many shacks don't have bathrooms. The few that do exist are shared among several households and are located outside, exposed to the weather. The alleyways are so narrow that in some areas, two people can't even walk side by side. And when the cold hits, the dampness and biting wind seep into the rooms, worsening the already fragile health of many residents, especially the elderly. The story of Yoo Ae-soon is a powerful reflection of daily life in Gyeonggi. She arrived in the village back in 1996 after losing the small restaurant she once owned. Today, she cuts hair inside her home just to get by.
The most inconvenient thing is the bathrooms,
She says.
if I earn just enough to eat, that's already enough. You get used to living like this, if it's all you've got.
Sometimes, Yu goes weeks with only one customer, and she makes a single bag of rice last 4 months. Another testimony that shows the brutal contrast of life in Gyeongsang comes from a woman who asked to remain anonymous, known only as Kim. She works cleaning windows in the surrounding high-rise buildings.
I pray every day that one of my children will one day live like the people up there,
She says, pointing toward the luxury apartments towering above her neighborhood. Gyeongsang's situation is reminiscent of Japan's Doigai, neighborhoods like Sanya, Kotobukiko, and Erin, where day laborers live in simple lodgings. But while the Doigai still offers some level of basic infrastructure, Gyeongsang lacks even proper sanitation, making life here even more challenging for its residents. And although Gyeongsang is often cited as the most extreme example of urban inequality in South Korea, it's not the only one. Other regions across the country also face similar struggles, each with its own distinct face of hardship. In Busan, South Korea's second-largest city, lies the Gamcheon Culture Village, a vibrant tourist attraction today, but one that has its roots in poverty and marginalization. Originally settled by refugees during the Korean War, Gamcheon was once a hillside slum, marked by poor housing conditions and a lack of basic infrastructure. Over time, government and community-led initiatives sought to transform its image, using art and cultural projects to breathe new life into the area. Meanwhile in Seoul, the neighborhood of Sangmin-dong, located in the Dabong district, is home to a mostly working-class and lower-middle-class population. With its narrow alleys and aging buildings, the area has served as the backdrop for shows like Reply 1988 and Squid Game, both portraying the everyday lives of ordinary South Koreans. While Sangmin-dong isn't a slum in the traditional sense, it reflects the daily struggles faced by many citizens amid rising living costs and growing social inequality. And for those who live in Gyeongsang, there's also the emotional burden of shame. In a society like South Korea, built on ideals of success, status, and productivity, living in a slum is often viewed as personal failure. Lee Hyun-moon, a police officer who patrols the area, put it bluntly.
This place is an embarrassment for Korea, and the people who live here know it.
Many avoid cameras, look away, and don't want to be seen. Kim Won-sim, from the local community center, added,
No one is proud to live here. It's shameful.
The social pressure in South Korea is so intense that the country leads the suicide statistics among developed nations. On average, 28.4 people take their own lives per 100,000 inhabitants, and among men, that number rises to 39. With a population of 50 million, over 14,000 Koreans die by suicide every year. And tragically, that number continues to rise alongside the country's economic growth. Despite redevelopment plans dating back to 2011, progress has been painfully slow. In 2023, the government announced a new project to replace Gyeongsang with a modern residential complex of 3,887 apartments, including subsidized housing for newlyweds. But ongoing disputes between officials and residents over compensation and relocation have blocked any meaningful advancement. The story of Gyeongsang is a stark reminder of the urgent need for inclusive policies, ones that address deep-rooted social inequalities and ensure dignity and security for all citizens, regardless of where they live or what they earn.